To help us change behavior in particular, where do you think the line is between helpful technology and then perhaps becoming over reliant on it as well?
I'm going to approach this as both a scientist. I'm going to approach this as somebody who cares deeply about other humans. And I'm going to approach this as just an everyday human being who has seen the effects of health technology. So, for those of you who don't know me very well, my main job is developing apps and digital health programs that almost always include health technology. I've been doing this now for about 15 years, and it has become really central to my view on the future of public health. I think technology is extraordinary. I think that it can help us personalize our approach to behavior change in a way that we couldn't do before. Now, with that said, I also think that as an industry, we've gone a bit overboard. There is a saying in our field called the quantified self, and it represents that we have now virtually quantified every aspect of us. There are benefits and there are consequences of that. I'm going to start by sharing where I think health technology can be extremely beneficial and where I have seen it really change lives. The first is in helping us understand our current patterns, our current habits, our current behaviors, our current routines. A lot of times when people come into coaching and they want to make a change, they want to change their eating habits, they want to change their sleep habits, their physical activity habits, they're really excited to do so, but they actually don't know where they're starting at. Think about it, right? Before the Apple Watch or Fitbit came out, we didn't really know how many steps we took today unless you wore one of those clunky pedometers on your ankle or on your belt loop. And the average person didn't do that. We didn't know. We didn't know how many steps we took. We didn't really have a baseline for us to say, well, where do we go from here? When that came out, it was almost like this revolution where we said, oh my goodness, I now know I'm averaging about 2,000 steps per day, and I could probably do more. I now see that I'm pretty sedentary between the hours of 9 to 5, and maybe that's contributing to this ache I feel in my back. Maybe that's contributing to the slow metabolism that I feel during that time, or some of my gut health issues. It has been absolutely phenomenal for raising awareness of our patterns and habits. On the nutrition side of things, I have many people who have said to me, okay, I need to cut down on saturated fat. But first of all, what is saturated fat? What's it in? What part of my dietary pattern is contributing to my saturated fat intake? When they have used food logs and food diaries, right? They have said, oh, I see now that 6-ounce burger is giving me, with cheese, like 14, 15 grams of saturated fat. Wow, that's a lot. And there's these aha moments that can come from health technology and our ability to utilize it to raise awareness of some of our behavioral patterns that we may not have understood before. Another benefit is tracking our progress. If we wear, a watch or a pedometer of some sort, and we start increasing our steps, we start making progress, we have evidence that our behavior is changing. We can see the trends. We can see maybe how certain life circumstances or contexts affected our progress and behavior change. And it gives us information on how to move forward. If we see on the scale that, our increase in weight has aligned with our decrease in steps, that gives us some clues about where to go. So there is a lot of benefit of health technology. Now, there is the other side to consider, which is human intuition. I have seen over the past 15 years, people lose their sense of intuition when they become overly dependent on health technology. I have seen people who track their food every single day, every single meal for 3 years, and they lose weight and they keep the weight off. And then they say, you know what? I just had a baby. I had another baby. I have kids running around the house. I'm working again. I'm so busy. I don't have time to track my food. And what happens? They gain weight. Because this whole time, this whole 3 years, they haven't been looking at their food. They haven't been using their mindful senses of, okay, like how much is on my plate? What does this taste like? Do I feel full or do I not feel full? They haven't been using those senses. They've been using the log to tell them if they met their calorie goal, not if they're full and satisfied. And the weight comes back. they lose their progress. Now, some scientists will say, well, people should just track forever. That's what some scientists would say. Yes, it is true. Across studies, we see that logging your food, keeping track of your food is a predictor of long-term weight loss success. However, do you think that's potentially widening disparity gaps for people who don't have time to track every single meal, can't afford the technology to track every single meal, or use the fancy new AI software to snap pictures? And right, I'm also a public health leader, so I have to consider the unintended consequences of health technology, which is why I'm a middle ground person. I think that technology can be extremely useful. I want to make it available for all people, and I want to teach them how to use it wisely. I want to teach them how to use it as a supplement to their intuition, as a supplement to their use of executive functioning, critical reasoning, mindful awareness, right? We have our bodies, which are controlled by our brain, the most complex and amazing system in the universe. In my opinion, there is no AI, there is no computer system that will ever outdo the human brain. We don't even know everything there is to know about the human brain and how it works. It is so complex and so vast. Just side note here, for those of you interested in neuroscience and how the brain works, there's a widely published scientist named Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she has written a few really easy to read books on this subject. But, it's true. We have an indispensable tool in our heads that can help us guide our behavior. And I don't want to see the human race lose that. I don't want to see the human race lose our ability to look at a plate of food and say, okay, I see some greens on there. That looks really healthy. That looks really delicious. And then as food is entering our body, right, there are hormones designed to tell you if you are full and if your body stores have been filled up. Now, in cases like obesity and severe obesity, sometimes those hormone levels get a little wacky and we get something called leptin resistance where we actually can't tell when we're full. There are absolutely cases like that where, again, technology can be really helpful in helping us to get back in tune with what is enough food. But for many people, when you feel full. Another consequence of overly tracking is when people override their internal signals because of what the food log tells them. For those of you listening, if you log your food, how many times, I used to do this, how many times did you feel so full after dinner and you felt content, but your food log said you had 300 extra calories? So what did you do? You're like, well, I can eat that cookie. I can have that ice cream. I can have that extra serving because I have 300 calories left, right? How many people have done that? But our body's like, no, you're actually good. You're actually full, right? And we say, no, our technology knows better, and we override. And then that leads to a whole bunch of bad stuff, like messing with your metabolism. So again, it's really critical to not become overly dependent on these technologies.
So Casey, my question leads in, we want to create a sense of balance. We want to be able to use them and understand them in the right way. Like, how can people foster self-reliance in a world that is increasingly relies on tech solutions, it seems?
I think we're still figuring that out, because I'm writing an article on this right now because it's so top of mind to me. Is our world has become overly convenient. We cherish convenience as a human species, right? For all of history, we've been making things more convenient and more convenient and more convenient. In doing that, I argue that it actually has led to declines in certain aspects of our well-being. So I would ask you, if there are things that you do that are more convenient for you, but actually detract from your physical or emotional or mental well-being, those might be prime targets for setting up some boundaries and changing some habits around. I'll give you an example of myself. 2 things that I caught myself over this past year. Actually, 3 things. The first is grocery delivery. Okay. 10 years ago, I would tell my husband, I would tell my friends, I find so much peace in a grocery store. I love going down the aisles. I love looking at different foods. I like seeing new products that come out. It genuinely brought me joy. It was like my wind down time. I'd go to the grocery store, I'd just kind of tune out and I'd do my thing. That's not for everybody, right? Some of you listeners are like, I hate going to the grocery store. Is that you?
I'm the exact, Ashling, yeah. She's like, why are you just walking around? I just enjoy it. I just like doing this. Yeah. So I enjoy it as well.
So I used to love it. Brought me so much joy, so much well-being. Then grocery delivery came out. And I was like, oh, okay. So between meetings, I can just go on my phone, or when the kids are just sitting down coloring, I can go on my phone. And I built a habit around that. And what happened? I actually lost some self-care time. I lost an opportunity of doing something that brought me joy. And my kids constantly saw me on on my phone. But I was like, oh, I made an excuse. Oh, but I'm ordering groceries. But what do they see? They say their mom not paying attention to them, right? And that was a significant negative consequence of, sure, it was much more convenient for me, but it actually detracted from my well-being and it detracted from my kids' well-being. Now, I'll give you a polar opposite example. My grandmother is in her 80s. It's very difficult for her to walk anymore. And grocery delivery has been a saving grace for her, right? It took away pain and it took away discomfort. That convenience was good for her. So this is not a one-size-fits-all issue, right? It is all about what is convenient and beneficial for you. I think there has to be two criteria there. Is it convenient? Great. Is it beneficial? Answer that. Now, another example. I formed some stoplight habits. Okay. I was the preacher of all preachers of don't use your phone when you're driving. Just don't. Why would you do that? That's so irrational. Why would you ever pull out your phone? And you know what I started doing? I said, my brain found a way around that because I was so compelled to use my phone and seek out information. I was anticipating, oh, did I get that email? Oh, did this person write back to me? Oh, can I just quickly do this to save time? It's so convenient that every time I hit a red light, I would reach for my phone. And I wasn't even aware of it until maybe a year ago when I said, I formed a habit. I have formed a very, very bad habit of at every red light, as soon as my brake hits, I reach for my phone and I check my messages. Oh, but I'm not driving, Casey. Ooh, you're following your rule. No, that is baloney, right? But this desire, this yearning for convenience and quick hits and dopamine hits of that my phone can provide me drove me to some really unhelpful habitual patterns. And so, I like to go on tailspins. You've probably learned this about me now, Podge, but what I will say is to answer your original question is, how do you know when to use technology and when not to use technology in different aspects of your life? You have to ask and become aware of the answer to, is this benefiting my health and well-being and the people I love, or is it detracting from it? And sometimes you can't find those answers without a qualified professional. I will be very honest, right? Coaches wouldn't exist if behavior change was so easy to do on your own. Listen, I'm a behavioral scientist. I've been doing this for 15 years. I have many academic degrees and a whole bunch of messy life experience. And I still have a therapist, right, who I see that helps me work through some things I don't understand. I had a therapy session 2 weeks ago where I had the biggest aha moment. We were talking about, and I'm very open for those listening, and I promise I'll pause in a second, Podge. I was telling my therapist, I said, I just have some issues sometimes with control. I feel like, and of course, for those of you who know me, know I have OCD, so this plays into it, but I feel compelled sometimes to say, oh, you should cook it this way, or, oh, you should do it this way. And I said, I'm going to stop doing that. And she took me through an exercise where I became so aware of the root cause of that stemmed back to many decades ago, to, things I had experienced as a child. And I was like, whoa, that is incredible. And I literally had the biggest aha moment. So just know that if you can't always figure things out yourself, that's okay, because there are people available who are trained and ready to help you do so.
Yeah, I think that's such a really good point. And a lot of stuff now, as you said, it's just been ingrained in habits. Like so much of what you spoke about, I was able to relate to, especially if you have a free moment, you're probably picking up your phone or scrolling on social media. Like it's just become such an ingrained habit for us that sometimes it does take that conversation with a professional to be able to elicit that from you and get that aha moment that it seems like you got.
That's right.